Paul, after listening to that, I'm sure a lot of people might be wondering about that violin you're playing, because it sounds beautiful. Tell us about it.
I've been very fortunate for the last 9.5 or almost 10 years now that I've been loaned this incredible violin. It's made in 1742 by Giuseppe Guarneri del Gesù. That's called the Wieniawski. This is on loan to me from the Stradivari Society in Chicago. And I must say, this violin had an interesting story with me, actually. I was first loaned this violin when I was 16 years old for 3 weeks. At that time, I was making my European debut at the Louvre in Paris. And my teacher thought that I needed a violin that is, of any standard compared to my old little crappy violin to make my first concert in Europe. And so he made a few phone calls, and it turned out this particular violin was available at that time. And so the owner agreed to let me use it for 3 weeks only, because she was not feeling very comfortable for a 16-year-old to have, of this instrument for a long term. So, and I was very grateful at the time. And then I came to Chicago, tried the violin, and after the concert went well, and then returned the violin. And actually, I never had any more contact with her or with the society since then, because at that time I didn't know, what is to keep in touch or any other thing. I just moved on to my little life, and I was fortunate enough, over the those course of years, I had a few instruments came my way, and the last instrument that I had was a Strat made in 1713, I believe, and that needed to be taken away actually quite suddenly. And I was left with no violins to use. And I was fortunate at that time. There was a wonderful man in New York who loaned me Niccolo Amati. In the interim, he said, I know this violin is not going to be the most suitable for you for concerto settings, but just take it until you found someone. And I was actually very happy with that violin, and I never actually sought out to look for another instrument. I thought that was a wonderful violin for me. And then, it came very surprisingly, a phone call, an unknown number called me, a few months later, and it turned out to be the owner of this violin. And then she had heard about that I actually lost the violin, and then she called and introduced herself and asked me if I know her, if I remember her, in fact. And I said, of course, how can I not, remember you? I was very grateful for the time. And then she said, well, the violin is, available now. Would you like to come and then try it again? And then so I immediately booked my next flight, back to Chicago, and then, tried on this violin again. And in the retrospect, actually, at that time, I was even more equipped physically to play on such a great instrument at that age. And then knowing all the possibilities of the violin. And then for me, this violin was actually the most suited violin for me so far. And I've been very, very lucky that I found the violin, and hopefully also vice versa with the violin that found me. And this has been the most cherished and important companion in my life, in my musical life.
When you first played it, did you know that this was the violin for you? I mean, in terms of the way it worked for you, or was this something that you
mean at
discovered?
the age when I was 16 years old?
Yeah.
Actually, no.
Okay.
At that time, I knew that it was an incredible instrument, and then somehow I was having a little struggle of navigating the violin, probably because I just haven't played that many great instruments at that point of my life, and know that it's an incredible violin, but I'm getting to know how to play great instruments. And I think realizing that, getting to play great instruments, actually you need to ease into it. It's not that you just offer a Strat that you've never played a Strat or the Gesù and that you're going to sound great on it. It also takes time, and also the instrument takes time to respond to the way you play. And I think it's very much a relationship, I would say, and probably more sentimental than a human relationship, I would say.